Hey, this is Jamie from Capsule Computers, and today we're reviewing Assassin's Creed Chronicles China for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Windows. The game is a 2.5D stealth platformer that takes many familiar mechanics from the Assassin's Creed series and flattens them. This is the first game that takes place in the Far East, and it is the first of 3 Assassin's Creed platformers from Climax Studios, with the other 2 set in India and Russia, respectively. The protagonist of Assassin's Creed Chronicles China is Xiao Jun, who will be familiar to some owners of Assassin's Creed Revelations. Xiao Jun was first introduced in the short film Assassin's Creed Embers, which came bundled in some editions of Revelations. She is among the last remaining assassins from the Chinese-based Brotherhood, and a survivor of an all-out slaughter by the Templars when their puppets took over the throne during the early days of the fall of the Ming Dynasty. The game is set only a short time after the film, when Jun is finally returning to China after spending time training with Ezio in Tuscany. Unfortunately, due to the length of the game, there isn't much room for serious plot development, but at least the problem is offset a little because it is building on an existing plotline that was started in Embers. The game plays like a pretty standard stealth platformer, with a few touches that will be familiar to Assassin's Creed players. The free running system is very smooth and an absolute joy to use, but the opportunity to really go nuts and appreciate it is actually quite limited. The controls are tight and pretty responsive, except for a few portions. I found the biggest hitches were actually trying to scan the map before taking the leap of faith and executing slide assassinations. Luckily, neither of these situations actually crop up too often to be too much of a bother. The game's stealth mechanics are good, but there isn't too much that makes the games really stand out from similar titles. Players are ranked based on how stealthily they can complete a mission and how many secondary objectives they complete. These points do help Xiao Jun acquire new abilities and bonuses, though the player doesn't really have much choice on what order they get these bonuses in. Combat is definitely discouraged in this game, as Xiao Jun feels like the most fragile assassin yet in the series. Jun only starts with 1 health point and will very slowly acquire more as she levels. The combat is simple and fun, but it becomes extremely challenging as the numbers of enemies begin to pile up. The levels are designed in a pretty linear fashion. There really isn't much room for creativity in the game, which is a real shame. Part of the charm of the Assassin's Creed titles for me has always been the fact that I have the freedom to figure out my own path to complete a mission. Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, on the other hand, is almost the same deal for the huge majority of the game. Scout ahead with the eagle vision, try to figure out the one way that it is possible to stealth through the entire level without having to assassinate someone, or even worse, get into combat, and then pick your way through the level hoping to stick to that plan. There really isn't too much wiggle room if your plan fails, especially since Jun takes serious experience penalties for getting into fights. Assassin's Creed Chronicles China is looking and sounding great. The game really does its best to put a modern spin on the traditional painting style found in China. The main color of the game is shades of light brown and tan that reminds me of the paper and silk used in these scrolls. Brown is punctuated by some really inky black and reds, with many of the game's details painted in with brushstrokes. I really like the very classy look Climax Studio has used for Assassin's Creed Chronicles. Like the graphics, the music also has some Chinese inspiration, as traditional Chinese instruments are backed up by the standard video game orchestra. It's an enjoyable soundtrack to listen to. Sound effects and the voice acting are also very good. The guards speak in Mandarin Chinese, though the English conversations has this odd pseudo-English accent to it. I guess it makes it sound foreign or something, but it's a little off-putting. If you're into stealth platformers or love the Assassin's Creed series, Assassin's Creed Chronicles China is a solid choice. Unfortunately, if you change the characters around, the game really could be any old stealth platformer. What makes the Assassin's Creed series unique, it seems to be missing in this game. The levels are very linear, the game is a little bit too restrictive, even though the game is still a solid stealth platformer. It's just not a great or a really unique one. So I'm giving Assassin's Creed Chronicles China 7 capsules out of 10. If you want to read our full review, be sure to check out the link in the description or in the video's card. I hope to see you soon. This is Jamie from Capsule Computers signing off.